Hello, and welcome to another book review. I did warn you several of these back that there were some really good books coming up from Pagan Portals and Moon Books this year. And here's another one. So this is Hestia, Goddess of Hearth, Home and Community by Irisanya Moon. A fabulous book. So Pagan Portals, nice and slim, about 100 pages. It's an introductory book, remember? So I'll come to that in a minute. But yeah, but it is packed with information. What I'm going to come to first, take my little doochie out because it's going to fall out anyway, is the fact that Irisanya Moon, the author, provides a page and a half of explanation, because this, although there is historical reference, there are historical references within this book. Primarily, the author works from her own experience. So she puts that in the introduction. She tells you why she uses the word gods, as in Godds, throughout, because it saves having to put god or goddess, and it's multi-binary, if you like. Let's face it, the gods can be whatever they want. So she explains that, but she also explains that this book, as most of her books are very much based on her personal experiences. She says that right up front. Throughout the book, she gives you the known ideas, the known references, the known offerings and symbols for this goddess, but she also tells you when it's her own experience. So that's the very first part. The next part is the introduction, and this is a really beautiful, because it actually explains to the reader how the author came to meet Hestia, and how she actually, when she did, realised that she'd been around a lot longer in her life. She just hadn't recognised she was there. And how many of us have had that, where you suddenly think, I had such a moment only a couple of days ago where it was like, oh, right. Maybe need to do something about that. And as I say, Irisanya Moon provides that in this first little introductory bit, where she explains how she met and how she continues to build her relationship. So there are 8 chapters all in all. The first chapter is about encountering Hestia, and within that there is, at the end, a beautiful meditation. She's trance work for connecting with Hestia. So if the reader wants to start building that relationship, that's there. I'm going to follow my doogies, my little sticky things, because I obviously put them in for a reason. So in this chapter, which I think is chapter 3, let's just make sure I'm not. It's not, it's chapter 4, beg your pardon. So chapter 3 is the historical. Chapter 3 is looking at the stories and myths of Hestia. Chapter 4 she's called Worshipping Hestia. Worshipping is one of those words. I took it to mean working with her. So it's things like cooking. So the chapter starts off with talking about how ancient worship and domestic life may have been from the records that we have. Don't forget, a lot of them were Roman, because the Romans obviously then, assimilated, shall we say, a lot of the goddesses and gods from the places that they invaded. So a lot of it is based on Roman writings, but from what we know, the ancient worship and in domestic life for this goddess. So there are traditions, there's the birth and the marriage, there's mourning, if there was public worship that we know about, traditional sacrifices. Ms. Moon does go on to discuss more modern ideas of sacrifice and how we can incorporate that. But then this is the one. So this actual part of this chapter is called Modern Worship Ideas. So hearth and home, cooking, make a meal for her, dedicate a meal, use your family recipes that have been handed down as a way of use what you have, which as a kitchen, which is, try new recipes. You then go on to cleaning, because we're talking hearth and home. So it is about cleaning. So, fresh sheets, cleaning the bathroom, scrubbing the kitchen sink, scrubbing the floors. Unseen service, the modern sacrifice. So what can you give up? And I'll just read out the 4: money, time, attention, and support. Modern sacrifice. Because how many of us say we haven't got enough time, but actually make time. Picking up trash, sweeping your neighbour's sidewalk, donating to causes, smiling at somebody. Just a smile can, make such a difference to somebody's day. Send a friend a card. So lovely ideas. Then there's community, there's volunteering, giving of your time and energy, hearth magic. Chapter 5 is a whole chapter on Hestia and the hearth, the importance of the hearth, how you can create a modern hearth in a modern building, because most of our houses today don't come with fireplaces that we can actually sort of cook on. So a whole chapter on how you can do that. The next chapter is about symbols and offerings. Now this includes, does it? Yes. So it includes the idea of what was offered. So obviously fire for a start, kettles, kettle drum, interesting, the chase tree, and then figuring out what to offer. And this is where Irisanya actually says, when you're starting to work with any goddess or any deity at all, ask them what they want. And then she gives you some other ideas about what to use. Candles, even LED candles. A cauldron or a pot. Lavender. Olive. Olive, very much from the ancient, linked to Hestia. So yeah, as in the olives and the olive oil, rather than the olive tree, because that's more Athena. But yeah, pictures of families to have on your altar. Just lovely ideas. Chapter 7 is the real sort of like, oh yeah. So having a relationship with Hestia, actually, right into this modern time, brings you to building communities, supportive, thriving, nurturing communities. Really interesting chapter, really, as I say, Irisanya has really worked with this and has looked at how do we bring Hestia into our modern lives, from thousands of years ago. Is she relevant? Oh yeah. I would say, but obviously, read the book, see what you think. The final chapter is about cultivating and maintaining your relationship with Hestia. So there is Astronos hymn, I hope I said that right, to Hestia, from the third quarter of the 4th century BCE. Translation was by Jan Martin Bremner. Meeting and greeting, doing your research first. So a good way to start building a relationship with any deity is to learn more about them. So this is a good start off, this book, but then, as I say, there's research, reflection, journaling, always a big one. Attention, pay attention to what's going on. And trusting your intuition and the messages that you are receiving. Does it feel safe? Does it feel comfortable? Is there trust or the willingness to trust? Do you feel nourished? Do you feel exhausted? So especially that last one, I'd say you're listening to something else. You're not listening to the right messages or the messages from the right place. Then you can set up your agreements and your expectations. So what time can I set aside for this relationship? What resources do I have? Whole list of things. And then there is a whole section on daily practice, if that is something that, you want to do. Ms. Moon does suggest that being able to offer even a small something every day consistently is better than doing a massive, huge, great thing just when you fancy. It's the consistency and working with them. There is a section on working with other gods at the same time. Really comprehensive. Troubleshooting in daily relationships. And then right at the end, if you want to dedicate to Hestia, if you feel that that's your way forward, the end of the chapter has got a good section on how to go about doing that. Lovely ending conclusion. Miss Moon does actually say this is not an easy practice and it will have times of disruption and disagreement. But then what family doesn't? Good section of endnotes. And then, as you will all know, I love my additional resources. So there is half a page of additional resources. There are consensus decision-making resources, most of which are online. Lovely, extensive bibliography of both books and online resources, which takes up 2.5 pages. Ready for a deep dive. Because I repeat again, this is a beginner's book or a rekindling book. So if you have worked with Hestia before, could be useful just to rekindle why you need to work with her in today's world, or how to, not how, but how to. Yeah, I suppose a little bit of how to. There are ideas and suggestions. There's no dogma. There's no you must do this. It is very much suggestions and ideas. So if you want to work with Hestia, have worked with her before but have lapsed, want to rekindle, a useful starting place is what I would say this book is. So I hope this has been useful. Do come in on the chat and tell me whether, you've got the book, whether you've read the book, what you thought of the book. Yeah, and I will see you next time.